Meet the incredible rancher who paid $1 for a deaf girl. What he discovered will transform lives. Jake sat in the corner of the diner, a worn-out newspaper lying flat on the table, the headline screaming at him like a distant storm. He pushed it away, but for some reason, the stark words about Lily, a young deaf girl, clung to him. On the surface, life was routine for this rugged rancher, but with every passing day, the threat of foreclosure loomed closer. The weight of his father's legacy felt heavier than the equipment rusting in his barn. With calloused hands, he gripped his coffee mug, the bitterness matching his growing desolation. How could he be fighting to hold on to his ranch while everything he built seemed ready to tumble? As he looked around at the familiar faces of the townsfolk, whispers of failure echoed in the stagnant air. His ranch, once thriving, was now a symbol of economic despair, little more than a string of debts pulling him under. He could feel the scrutinizing gazes, how they judged him behind their placid smiles. Doubt crept in, gnawing at his resolve. Was he really fit to shoulder the responsibilities that came with a ranch? The internal conflict brewed, churning like a wild Texas storm. He stood and stepped outside, where the wind howled as if echoing his own turbulent thoughts. The ranch needed him, it always had, but it also chained him, an isolation he could feel gnawing at him day in and day out. He had made sacrifices for this land, his youth, friendships, maybe even a family of his own. And yet he questioned if it was worth it. Could he really offer his heart to something that might shatter him completely? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Inside the diner, his thoughts flickered back to Lily. The dollar he would offer her seemed absurd. Yet it represented a chance, a glimmer of purpose amongst the dread of his financial ruin. What would the townsfolk think? Taking on a deaf girl with a sorrowful past when his own future was uncertain? He envisioned his family, the hardened men and women of the ranching line, casting disdainful glances at his decision. Their words split like a blade. "What will you gain, Jake? More burdens?" But then he recalled her sketches, those wildflower colors splattered across paper, and for a moment the heaviness lessened. Could she be a sign amid his turmoil? Despite the questions brewing in his heart, each whisper of doubt felt like a shadow cast over hope. Every time he wrestled with the decision, he teetered between a desire to pull away and the burning need to connect. Would he plunge forward into a new life tethered to someone else's sorrow? And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and despair, Jake found himself torn in two, between the certainty of loneliness and the uncertain joy she might bring. Would he seize the opportunity to reshape their destinies together, or would he drown in the expectations that threatened to crush him further? The fork in his path grew sharper, the stakes rising with every heartbeat. In that anguished moment, Jake stood paralyzed, soul-searching for a lifeline in an unforgiving world, not knowing if he was ready to confront every challenge ahead. Jake breathed deeply, the chill evening air swirling around him, tugging at the resolve he felt drumming inside. The thoughts of Lily resonated even louder now. What exactly did he want to gain by bringing her into his life, especially when every ounce of his energy was spent on keeping the ranch afloat? Her bright sketches held a promise of joy he hadn't encountered in years, but could he shoulder that responsibility alongside his own burdens? As he returned home, Each step felt weighted, an anchor pulling him deeper into contemplation. The ranch lay before him, silent and vast, its familiar silhouette somehow both comforting and suffocating. He glanced at the barn, recognizing that it was more than just a structure. It represented a legacy he was expected to uphold. But at what cost? He entered the house, the worn wooden floor creaking beneath him. Inside, the aroma of old leather and hay wrapped around him like a blanket, and he felt himself drowning in memories. A photograph of his father caught his eye, their eyes mirroring an unyielding dedication. What would his father think of his current state? Would he scoff at the thought of Jake adopting a girl whose life was suffused with hardship, when he struggled to keep his own life from crumbling? Jake poured himself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table, his thoughts swirling in a tempest. The prospect of adopting Lily ignited a flicker of something, hope, perhaps? But would that flicker survive the uncertainty of his circumstances? He realized bringing Lily into his life was not just about her, it was about him too. It meant accepting vulnerability, but that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down at a chasm too deep to cross. The previous years had taught him to shove his emotions down tightly, but opening his heart again would require a leap of faith. That night, sleep eluded him. Memories flashed, fragments of a time before responsibility had anchored him to the ranch, a world full of laughter, friends, and possibilities. He remembered the carefree days of chasing cattle with his childhood friends, where failures had been merely temporary setbacks. Those moments had been infused with an innocence that felt lost. Jake wrestled with a lingering fear that he had grown so accustomed to hardship that joy seemed something foreign, reserved for the brave. By dawn, he sat at the kitchen table, gazing out toward the horizon. The early morning sun bathed the land in golden hues. Inspiration flickered within him, warming the depths of his uncertainty. He found himself pondering the concept of legacy. Was it only about what he left behind, or how he chose to live now? Maybe, just maybe, helping Lily could redefine his purpose. As he made a decision, a knock echoed through his solitude, momentarily shaking him from his thoughts. Who could it be at this hour? An anxious feeling welled up as he made his way to the door. Each step felt like a new beginning, but also a confrontation. Was he really prepared for what lay ahead, both for himself and for a little girl? He opened the door, not knowing that the arrival would challenge everything he thought he had decided. What awaited him on the other side would force him to reconfront the turbulent tides of his past and put to the test the resolve of his newfound purpose. Standing at the threshold, Jake braced himself for whatever awaited him. The figure before him was smaller than he expected, cloaked in a heavy coat that had seen better days. Yet it was the expression on her face, a mix of hope and uncertainty, that struck him most. It was not Lily, but a woman he recognized as the local social worker, Laura, her presence immediately filling the space with an air of urgency. "Jake," she said, her voice steady but gentle, "we need to talk. It's about Lily." His heart raced. He had anticipated questions, perhaps even a request, but what she had to say felt monumental. The door suddenly felt like a dam holding back a flood of emotions, and he instinctively stepped back, inviting her inside. As they settled at the kitchen table, Laura wasted no time. "I just received word that the foster home Lily's been in cannot keep her any longer. They want to place her somewhere else, far from here. But with your background and your connection to the ranch, you might be her best option." A sense of alarm jolted through him. The responsibility weighed heavily, twisting in his gut. "I'm not sure I'm equipped for this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Jake, you've shown more than enough strength in running this ranch. You know hard work and dedication. You've experienced loss and have connected with that pain. Lily needs someone like you, someone who understands what it means to keep going against the odds." Her words rang in his ears, igniting the flicker of hope that had started to grow within him. "But I have my own burdens. How can I take on a child whose life is in such turmoil? I can't even keep afloat myself," he confessed. "You might be surprised at how helping her may help you, too," Laura said, locking her gaze onto his, an unyielding determination in her eyes. "You have the potential to be a mentor, to inspire, and in return, she may bring light into your life that you didn't know was missing." Jake felt the warmth of her conviction wrapping around him, but doubt continued to tether him back. What did he truly know about raising a child? He was comfortable in the lonely expanse of the ranch, where silence was punctuated only by the distant calls of wildlife. Here was another realm of responsibility, one where laughter and tears blended, potentially creating chaos. He realized, though, that retreating into solitude had become his way of hiding. Why was facing discomfort so daunting? What was left of the boy who had chased after dreams without fear? The answer was beginning to uncoil inside him. Perhaps the thrill of reclaiming joy meant he could become the protector and guide he longs to be. "I need time to think," he murmured, battling the storm of conflicting emotions that slushed within him. "Just consider it, Jake. You have the chance to rewrite both of your stories," Laura urged. With that, she left, leaving the door open and a draft of uncertainty swirling around him. The usual silence of the ranch now felt charged, alive with possibilities. He stood there, a cacophony of thoughts battling for dominance. Could he really take this step? Could he transition from the man who sheltered his heart to one who dared to embrace vulnerability and responsibility? The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting an array of colors across the sky, and it filled Jake with an unfamiliar sense of urgency. He took a breath, the promise of change coating his soul. But the real question lingered: what would he find at the end of this uncertain road? And in that moment, with time stretching before him like the wide open fields of his ranch, he knew it was time to reconcile his past with the uncertain future, both for him and for the little girl who could alter everything. Would he have the courage to face his demons head-on, or would he let fear chain him to the familiar? The quietude of the ranch enveloped Jake as he stood by the open door, grappling with the enormity of the decision that lay before him. The vibrant colors of the sunset contrasted sharply with the shadow of doubt loitering in the corners of his mind. Could he genuinely be that person who welcomed the chaos of a child's life into his own, or was that part of him forever diminished? He hesitated, the unsettling weight of uncertainty lingering like the smoky trail of a campfire. Memories of his childhood flooded back, days filled with laughter, the innocent whimsy of summer evenings, a time when hope was limitless. But adulthood, with its heavy burdens and unavoidable losses, had stifled that boyish spirit. Taking on Lily felt like a reckless gamble. After all, he wasn't a father, nor did he have the faintest grasp on parenting. Yet a spark of defiance ignited within him. The thought of another child, just like he once was, facing the daunting realities of life alone, pulled at his resolve. He started pacing the kitchen, desperately trying to navigate through the whirlwind of emotions. There had to be more to this than just obligation. Could he channel his anguish into something meaningful, a purpose that could transcend his own grief? As the glow of twilight dimmed, he turned to the ranch's land stretching out before him. This place had always been a sanctuary, a reflection of his own resilience. The very dirt beneath his feet told stories of relentless toil and unwavering strength. Perhaps raising a child wasn't tantamount to losing himself. Instead, it could be a journey of rediscovery. He paused. What if? What if he stopped seeing the ranch as a fortress designed to shelter him from harm, but instead viewed it as a haven to nurture growth, his and Lily's. A creeping sense of determination formed as he allowed the idea to take root. Jake began to list everything he could provide: stability, routine, mentorship. He pictured himself guiding Lily through chores, teaching her the intricacies of tending to animals or planting seeds in the fields. Each task unfolding as both a lesson and a bonding experience, giving her not only skills but also a sense of belonging. And yet, doubt was a cunning adversary, whispering tales of inadequacy. What if he failed her? What if his loneliness seeped into the cracks of her young spirit? These worries danced around his mind, but with each step he willed himself to confront them. Acceptance was never a destination, it was a process that required courage and vulnerability. Suddenly, the phone rang, jolting him from his reverie. It was Laura. His heart raced again, the urgency in her voice both familiar and disconcerting. "Jake, I know I just left, but there's something important we need to discuss about Lily," she said, her tone laced with urgency. "Can we meet again?" He glanced toward the fading sunlight, the horizon blazing with potential, and nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "Yes, of course. What's going on?" As she explained further, the anticipation thrumming within him morphed into something more potent. Was this meeting to beg him for help, or perhaps gently nudge him into accepting a path he had yet to fully consider? Having hung up the call, Jake sank back into contemplation, the air around him thickening with expectation. This could be the turning point he needed, an opportunity to wrestle with his fears in real time, a chance not just to support Lily, but to regain a lost piece of himself, the boy who dared to reach for the stars. He stepped out into the cool evening air, each breath a step closer to understanding what lay ahead. Would he be able to overcome the relentless grip of fear? Or was this just the beginning of entanglement with uncertainties he longed to escape? As the night crept in, Jake resolved to meet Laura with an open heart. He was beginning to realize that the only way out of despair wasn't through isolation, but through connection and empowerment. And in that moment, a new chapter of his life beckoned, a blend of responsibility and personal renaissance. What awaited them would demand courage on multiple fronts, a venture into uncharted territories. But with the rising sun, Jake felt the dawn of transformation looming, one that could redefine not just his existence, but that of a little girl longing for stability. Could he really trust himself to navigate this new purpose? The question hung in the air, suspended and heavy as the night deepened around him, trailing the promise of what was to come. As dawn broke, Jake sat at the dining table, the soft light of morning filtering through the wide windows, casting golden patterns on the weathered wood. Today felt different. An ineffable energy crackled in the very air he breathed. He sensed that the meeting with Laura could irrevocably alter the course of his life and Lily's. The reality of raising a child was no longer a distant fright, but rather a tangible prospect waiting for him at the front door. He replayed their conversation in his mind, dissecting every word. Laura's tremor when she mentioned important tugged at his instincts. Did she see in him what he was hesitant to acknowledge in himself? That he could be more than just a lone cowboy in a sprawling landscape? Potentially a father figure? The apprehension mingled with curiosity, igniting a determination to step beyond the veil of self-doubt. Jake stood up, moving to the window. Outside, the ranch lay sprawled beneath the clear blue sky, giving him a renewed sense of purpose. He thought of the land and how every inch of it had been shaped by his hands. Nurturing it had taught him patience and yielded fruits both literal and metaphorical. In his mind, he began to construct a parallel. Nurturing a child could be much the same. "Okay, what do I need to do?" he murmured to himself. A surge of clarity washed over him. He defiantly embraced the journey ahead. He took out a notepad, scribbling ideas. He'd create a routine with Lily,
Chores paired with lessons, fun intertwined with responsibility. Would it be enough? The nagging whisper of doubt persisted, yet he forced himself to confront that stifling notion. What mattered most wasn't perfection, but the sheer act of being present. Next, Jake sought knowledge. He grabbed the laptop from the corner of the kitchen, determined to find resources on parenting and child development. The glow of the screen illuminated his resolve. He quickly typed in searches: parenting guides, articles about the needs of grieving children, even forums for local parents. Each click broadened his understanding, morphing uncertainty into action. He would not passively wait for life to unfold. He would actively shape it. Before he knew it, an hour had slipped by, and there were at least 6 tabs lit up, brimming with advice.
Some commented on the importance of communication, how children needed to feel heard and seen, especially through trauma. He flinched at that word, trauma. Could that describe not just Lily's experience, but also his own? The admission felt heavy, yet illuminating. His thoughts raced back to that boy who dared to dream under the starlit sky. Could he guide Lily to not only survive her circumstances, but also thrive? That thought kindled something within him. Suddenly, his heart quickened, realizing that this meeting would demand something else of him: courage. What if Laura held stark truths, revelations about Lily that he wasn't prepared for? The future felt both enticing and terrifying. He could feel himself on the precipice, an intoxicating blend of hope and anxiety coiling within his gut. As he locked the laptop and glanced around the modest but familiar kitchen, he recognized his own power had been rediscovered. Behind every doubt was the chance to learn and embrace vulnerability. This was pivotal, not just for Lily, but for him too. In that moment, he understood that this was about more than mere acceptance. It was about engaging fully with life, about the courage to confront his own shadows. He was not merely acting out of obligation, but rather stepping into a role where both he and Lily could unearth resilience together. The clock ticked ominously on the wall. Time pressed forward, and soon he would be meeting Laura. His heart raced with new possibilities, invigorated by the vitality coursing through him. He could not back away from this. And then it struck him. What if Laura's news was a test, not of Lily's needs alone, but of his own readiness to embrace fatherhood? Jake squared his shoulders, a mixture of eagerness and dread feeling weighty in his chest. He was prepared to step into this new realm, whatever it might hold. Today was not just another day. It was a threshold. As he reached for his hat, a sudden thought struck him like lightning. What if this transformed him in ways he never anticipated? The thought loomed over him, heavy and intoxicating, mirroring the uncertainty of the day to come. Would he be able to embrace this chance to reinvent his life and grow alongside the child he had yet to meet? The answer felt tantalizingly out of reach, and with that, the door to the unexpected began to crack open wide. Jake arrived at the small cafe just off the main highway, the place where he'd agreed to meet Laura. The bell above the door jingled softly as he stepped inside. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries enveloped him, yet the comforting atmosphere did little to ease the restlessness within. He scanned the crowd, searching for a glimpse of her, a nod to the gravity of what lay ahead. Settling into a booth at the back, he took a deep breath, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. This meeting held the potential to shift everything in his life. Could he truly embrace the responsibility that was expanding like a balloon in his conscience? He instinctively ran his fingers over the worn leather of his hat, a tangible reminder of who he was, a cowboy, a caretaker of the land. Did those skills translate to caring for a child? The flicker of doubt darted through his mind again, but was swiftly replaced by a renewed determination. Time slipped by as he waited, each minute magnified in his anxious mind. The atmosphere buzzed around him, chatter from nearby tables punctuating his restless thoughts. He forced himself to focus on the reason he was here, Lily, and everything she meant to him, everything she needed. Finally, Laura walked through the door, her demeanor both composed and taut, as if she carried an invisible burden. He recognized the look of someone who had been through storms, someone who understood uncertainty. When their eyes locked, she offered a brief smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Instinctively, Jake stood to greet her, feeling his own anxiety echoed in her presence. "Thanks for meeting me," Laura said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Thanks for coming," he replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. They exchanged small pleasantries, but beneath the surface, Jake sensed gravity in the air. The tension was palpable, vibrating with the unspoken words waiting to break free between them. "I've been thinking a lot about Lily," Laura began, and Jake's heart quickened. "She needs more than just a stable environment. She's been through a lot." At those words, Jake's palms turned moist against the table. He could now feel the enormity of the protective shield around his own heart beginning to crack. "What do you mean, exactly?" Laura sighed, brushing a few loose strands of hair behind her ear. She's been battling nightmares and avoiding talking about her feelings. At her age, it's normal, but given her circumstances, it's different. I think she needs someone to really listen, to validate her emotions. You could be that person for her, Jake. An unexpected wave rolled through him, an awakening. Listening? It sounded so simple. Yet he had spent too much time in the solitude of his own thoughts. What if all the wisdom gleaned from tending the land was now meant to cultivate the heart? The realization was invigorating and terrifying at the same time. "And if I fail?" he blurted, fear suddenly stealing his breath. "You won't. You are inherently nurturing. You just need to channel that energy in different ways. It's about connection, and you're already a part of her world. Trust that." Her words hung in the air, imbued with hope and challenge. Jake could feel a flicker of vulnerability igniting within him. He was no stranger to fear, but he had never confronted something so personal before. Could he unravel the layers of his own past, his reservations, his vulnerabilities, and forge a deeper bond that could help Lily heal?
As Laura elaborated on Lily's needs, strategies to effectively communicate, creating safe spaces for her emotions, Jake recognized the breadth of the journey between them. He absorbed every word as tools for his toolbox, ensuring he'd be prepared not just for what lay immediately ahead, but for the evolution of their relationship. "Is there anything else you think I should know?" he asked, the tremors of doubt still faint but growing quieter in the wake of purpose. Laura leaned in, her gaze steady and sincere. "Embrace your own feelings. You might be surprised at what you discover about yourself through this process." Her statement struck a resonant chord within him, amplifying the earlier revelation that this would indeed be transformative. He understood it now. This was not merely an obligation, it was an opportunity for his own growth, a chance to uncover parts of himself he had long buried beneath rugged exteriors. As their meeting wrapped up and the sunlight began to wane, the boundaries of his world felt more expansive. As he walked out of the cafe, an intricate tapestry of challenges and possibilities unfolded before him. Was he ready to navigate both the victories and the tribulations that came with stepping into the role of a father figure? With purpose in his stride, Jake pondered one last question. What kind of father did he want to be? And how would he take the first steps into this new chapter of his life? He felt the answer bubble beneath the surface. Each moment ahead would be a building block of discovery, and the time had come to face his own past as he embraced a future full of promise. As Jake stepped outside the cafe, the cool evening air ignited a spark of clarity. The world felt more vivid. Each sound, each rustle of the trees heightened his senses. He could envision the path ahead, the challenge of fostering a connection with Lily blooming before him. But the prospect also stirred unease. What did it mean to truly listen? And how could he dismantle the walls he had built around his own emotions? He took a moment to stand still, allowing the weight of his awareness to settle around him. Decisions loomed, and he had to confront not just the daunting task of being there for Lily, but the shadows of his own past that threatened to cloud his ability to nurture. The starkness of his solitude since the passing of his mother filled him with a simmering tension. Back home, Jake approached the kitchen table, the place where he often mapped his days in the scratched wood. He ran his fingers over the surface, recalling the laughter and warmth of family dinners that now felt like distant echoes. With each stroke, he felt something deep within him shift, an invitation to dig deeper into his own psyche, to uncover vulnerabilities he had long neglected. He set a plan into motion, gathering his thoughts like the tools of the trade he was accustomed to. To help Lily, he would have to chart unexplored territory within himself, navigating the winding paths of his upbringing. The grit it took to mend fences on the ranch would serve as the backbone of his emotional growth. He would draw parallels from the mechanics of caring for land to the nuances of butting heads with emotional turmoil. The next day, he sought out Laura's guidance. He wasn't a man prone to second-guessing himself, but something about this touched a deep nerve. When he arrived at her small cottage, a dizzying mix of anticipation and trepidation coursed through him. He knocked, and Laura opened the door, her expression warm yet guarded. "What's on your mind?" she asked, noticing the resolve behind his uncertain smile. "I want to understand what it means to truly listen to Lily. I can't just sit there and nod while she talks," Jake replied, his voice steady yet containing the undercurrents of his introspection. "Listening isn't merely about hearing words," Laura explained, inviting him inside. "It's about being present, letting her know her feelings matter. Use the same attention you give to the land, to its cycles, its needs. When you sit with her, establish that same bond of trust, ensuring she feels safe to express herself." Jake mulled over her words, recalling the years spent planting seeds and watching them blossom under the sun. He couldn't ignore the emerging idea that perhaps he needed to start viewing his emotions the same way, slowly nurturing them, allowing growth and healing to occur. That evening, after their conversation wrapped up in a satisfying exchange of insights, he began focusing on the subtle lessons of silence and reflection. As dusk fell, Jake picked up a notepad, jotting down what he wanted to say to Lily, the thoughts he often kept locked away. A spontaneous letter emerged, infused with his hopes, fears, and the genuine desire to connect. Each word became a stepping stone in his evolving perspective. He detailed how he, too, had faced uncertainty and fear at times, weaving a narrative that echoed his commitment to be there for her. It struck him that this letter wasn't just for Lily. It served as a personal acceptance of the role he was stepping into. Days turned into weeks, and despite the daily challenges, he gradually built a routine that encompassed both ranch life and fostering his relationship with Lily. They took walks, discovered shared stories, and engaged in art projects that allowed her to express herself freely. Yet uncertainty persisted, because for every breakthrough, there were moments where doubt crept in, reminding him of his past failures. One dreary afternoon, Lily burst into tears during a quiet moment, and despite his instinctive urge to console her, Jake hesitated. What if he couldn't handle her pain? What if he pushed too hard? As she sobbed, conflicted emotions swirled within him. Should he allow her to manifest her raw feelings, or would his own fears stifle her? It struck him then he needed to confront his inner demons, his own neglected grief, if he truly wished to serve as a refuge for her. With heart pounding and hands trembling, he eased onto the floor beside her. "It's okay to feel lost," he whispered. "I'm here, and I feel it too." In that pivotal moment, Jake realized that the terrain of fatherhood would be treacherous but also littered with glimpses of hope, learning, and growth. What would Jake uncover about himself next as he navigated both his fears and Lily's emotional landscape?
Would he be able to bridge the distance between his guarded heart and the vulnerability required to connect with her? The internal battle was just beginning, and the horizon remained uncertain. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the ranch. The crisp air was laced with the bittersweet scent of fresh earth, a constant reminder to Jake of the work that lay ahead, both on the fields and within his own heart. He stood on the porch, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, and watched as the light danced on the dewy grass. This was a sacred moment, a grounding ritual steeped in nature's rhythm. Yet today, it marked the beginning of something more profound. Jake understood that nurturing the budding relationship with Lily required an evolution, one that stretched beyond simple acts of kindness. He resolved to confront the fears that loomed large in his mind like the storm clouds of the past. He had to tackle the ghost of his mother's death while shedding the idea that he could shield Lily from her pain without first addressing his own. Her tears, if left unacknowledged, could echo hidden grief. They deserved a space for acknowledgement, not avoidance. With a renewed sense of purpose, he decided that their next outing would be a venture into the nearby woods, a place that once brimmed with family adventures and laughter. He remembered the tales shared around the campfire, where stories blended with the crackling flames, diversions from the mundane. This environment could serve as a backdrop for deeper conversations, enabling them to explore uncharted feelings comfortably. As they trekked into the woods, Jake led the way, his instincts guiding him to the familiar trails. The serenity of nature surrounded them, and with every step, he felt the weight of his worries begin to soften. It was here he could create a canvas where Lily could project her feelings, should she choose to share them. "Do you remember coming here with your mom?" Jake asked, his voice gentle yet probing. It felt like a delicate plunge into waters where memories float freely. Lily nodded, her gaze drawn to the moss-covered rocks and the sound of distant birds. "We found that giant tree, remember? The one shaped like a heart?" Her face lit up, a glimmer of joy mingling with the vulnerability of the moment. He crouched beside her, grounding his presence to match her emotional landscape. "What do you think that tree would tell us if it could talk?" She mused for a moment. "Maybe it would tell us that it's okay to feel everything, happy and sad." Jake's chest tightened with the importance of those words. It struck him that this was the lifeblood of their evolving bond, giving each emotion a voice, even when they were dark and heavy. As he looked into her eyes, he felt a stirring, a sense of acceptance for his own sorrow. "Sometimes I feel lost too," Jake finally admitted, courageously cracking the shell he had kept so carefully intact. "Just like you." The admission released a discomforting breath, yet it felt freeing. Lily shifted, processing his revelation. "But you take care of everything. You're strong." Strength isn't about never feeling sad. It's about letting those feelings surface. Just like in farming, sometimes we have to let the earth rest for new things to grow. He paused, recognizing the weighted connection between nurturing land and nurturing hearts. As they continued their exploration, Jake encouraged her to share more, the colors of her fears, the landscapes of her joys. Each word she spoke led to further understanding, an unearthing of layers in both of their lives, fostering an unexpected camaraderie that left him feeling lighter. But as joy filled the air, a more disturbing thought sneaked into his mind. What if he faltered? What if his honesty opened a door he was unprepared to handle? The doubt nagged at him, threatening to undermine his growth just as he began to grasp the underlying principles of emotional engagement. That evening, as they settled back at the ranch, Jake's mind whirred with the weight of the day's conversations. He'd taken strides toward connection, but much lay ahead. Could he maintain this newfound transparency, even when confronted with heart-wrenching emotions? Without clarity on how deep this journey would take him, he knew he had to step forward, willing to face uncertainties that lay in wait. The shadows of grief swirled, menacing at the edges of his consciousness. What further challenges awaited him as he peeled back layers of his own despair in the pursuit of connection with Lily? Would he hold the strength needed to support her while grappling with his own fraught past? The complexities of love and vulnerability demanded answers he had yet to discover. The following morning, Jake awoke with a knot of anticipation tightening in his stomach. He'd laid the groundwork for a relationship that felt delicate yet full of potential. The clarity he had glimpsed in the woods sparked a desire for deeper honesty. But now the weight of vulnerability pressed down on him. What if he misstep? What if his forthrightness pushed Lily away rather than drawing her closer? With these thoughts swirling in his mind, he set to work on the ranch, where the toil of the land mirrored the struggles within him. As he moved among the familiar tasks, clearing brush from the fence line, mending a broken trough, he found his body engaged in a rhythm that calmed his racing thoughts. Each task felt like a meditation, grounding him in the present. But the clarity he found in manual labor was rudely interrupted by a sudden memory, the day he lost his mother. He had been just a boy, barely comprehending the full weight of loss. The taste of emotional grief was unfamiliar then, bitter and sharp. As a defense mechanism, he had buried it deep, convinced that he could navigate the world without wrestling his way through sorrow. Now he understood that avoidance would not serve him in this new connection with Lily. When evening approached, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting fiery hues across the sky like a promise to be honest and open, to navigate through the emotional terrain laid bare. He prepared dinner with meticulous care, almost as if the simple act could somehow imbue his heart with the courage he needed. Lily arrived shortly after, her face lighting up at the sight of the meal he had prepared. They shared friendly banter, indulging in light conversation, but Jake felt the weight of the unmentioned words hanging in the air, like an unfinished song that needed a resolution. He refrained from allowing fear to dictate the moment, reminding himself of the ground he had gained. "Lily, do you think we could talk about something a bit deeper?" he ventured, his voice steady but laden with apprehension. Her eyes widened, but she nodded, seemingly inviting him to continue. "About loss, and how it makes us feel." He navigated the conversation tentatively, feeling like a man walking on a tightrope, well aware of the stakes involved. Lily paused, contemplation etching itself across her young features. "It's scary, sometimes," she finally confessed, her vulnerability rising to the surface. "When things feel heavy, I'd rather hide beneath my blankets, but I know I can't do that forever." Jake's heart swelled. Here was the bridge he had hoped to build, each confession laying planks of trust between them. "I feel that way too," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "I often feel overwhelmed by sadness when I think of my mom, but I've realized that it's okay to sit with it." His honesty opened a floodgate, a cascade of emotions tumbling forth. As he shared stories of his mother and the problem he faced in confronting grief, he felt lighter, freer, even if only slightly. "Do you ever wonder if talking about it makes it easier?" Lily asked, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "Sometimes," Jake replied. "It's like when you plant seeds in the ground. If they're not given the right attention, they won't sprout. Talking through our feelings nurtures those seeds of sadness, allowing them the space to grow into something new." Just then, as laughter intertwined seamlessly with the honesty shared moments before, a thought crossed Jake's mind. What if this gentle camaraderie they were building could also help him grow as a rancher? If love and vulnerability could bolster his personal life, could this approach be woven into the fabric of his professional endeavors? Before he could dwell further on this thought, a barn door creaked ominously behind them. The familiar sound knotted his stomach again. Was there an issue with the horses? The uncertainty loomed large, yes, but it was nothing compared to the transformative journey he had just sparked between himself and Lily. Jake met her gaze, determination firing in his chest.
The essence of his relationship was entwined with his growth as a person, making the upcoming confrontation with whatever awaited him at the barn not merely an obligation, but a vital step in his evolution. What lay in that shadowy barn, and how would it impact their journey together? Would he confront the difficulties ahead with the same honesty he had begun to cultivate? The answers lingered just out of reach, compelling him onward into the dark. Jake stood at the entrance of the barn, the familiar scent of hay and leather wafting around him, grounding him in reality. His heart raced as he stepped inside, ready to embrace whatever challenge awaited, both for the ranch and for the newfound bond he was forging with Lily. As he entered the dim space, he was greeted by the sight of his prize mare, Willow, standing restlessly in her stall. She had always been his confidant, a silent partner through years of toil and heartache. The sight of her now stirred something within him, a reminder that nurturing relationships, whether with a horse, a piece of land, or a child, required commitment and vulnerability. He approached her slowly, running his hand along her strong neck, allowing the connection they shared to seep in. But before he could get too lost in thought, the urgent sound of hooves echoed from behind him. Jake turned sharply to find one of his younger horses acting up. It was spooked by a clap of thunder, thrashing against the post and rattling the barn walls. In that split second, his instincts kicked in. "Easy there, girl," he called softly, approaching the frightened mare with care. He caught her eye, grounding himself in the moment, sensing that calmness would be key. Slowly, he extended his hand, whispering words of soothing encouragement. A rush of realization cascaded over him. This moment mirrored his evolving dynamic with Lily. Just like this anxious mare, she too was navigating a world filled with the unpredictable. If he could calm her fears, could he not also do the same for Lily? The responsibility of being a father figure and mentor wasn't just about teaching how to ride. It was also about comforting, being present, and allowing the space for emotions to breathe. With careful movements, he managed to guide the frightened horse back into her stall, allowing the tension to dissipate slowly. As he locked the stall door, he felt a wave of triumph welling up from inside. The storm may come and go, but that didn't mean he needed to succumb to it. The act of grounding himself amidst chaos had taught him something vital. Being present during the storm is part of overcoming it. Turning to exit the barn, he caught a glimpse of Lily standing at the entrance, her small frame silhouetted against the fading light. "You were brave," she said, her voice soft but steady, reflecting hope where once only uncertainty loomed. "Just like we've talked about, right?" Jake smiled, reveling in the new understanding settling between them. "Sometimes we face storms, but it's how we respond that matters most." The connection was tangible. It was a relationship forged through shared experience. He could already feel the shift in both their hearts, an almost palpable bond formed not just by addressing their fears, but by choosing to face them together. It was in that moment of clarity that Jake fully grasped his dual purpose. He needed to be a guardian, yes, but the journey meant much more. It meant seeking out joy together, celebrating the small victories, and cultivating resilience in the face of uncertainty. They could navigate this journey of healing side by side. As they walked back to the house, the sun slipped beneath the horizon, allowing the glowing moon to cast a calming light over the land. The shift within Jake was welcomed. Each step felt lighter, every breath imbued with a newfound perspective. He had gone from a man who carried his burdens in isolation to one who shared those very burdens with a child. Days turned into weeks as they settled into a rhythm. Jake taught Lily the nuances of ranch life, while she, in turn, painted vivid pictures of the beauty around them. In her art, he saw the layers of her pain transform into something beautiful and free, much like the land that flourished beneath his care. Time unveiled true transformation. Jake began to feel the weight of past sorrow lift as he dedicated himself to expressing vulnerability, while the joys of fatherhood filled in the gaps. The conversations became more profound, echoing through their days, and the emotional walls he had built slowly crumbled. Jake took pride in these daily achievements. He conquered the hurdles that once felt insurmountable. He was guided by an unwavering commitment to nurture Lily, and in doing so, he discovered a piece of himself he had thought long lost. When the day finally came for him to officially adopt her, a rush of emotion surged through him. As he held the court papers, emotions cascaded through him: gratitude, longing, achievement. He had become the protector that Lily needed, but he had also found the caretaker within himself once again. From that moment on, they sealed their bond with the name of family, a symbol of new beginnings, resilience, and love that would weather any storm.
Jake had become more than just a rancher, a title he had previously worn like armor. He was a father now, transformed through shared experiences, delighted in the journey they would continue to embrace together. The sun rising over the fields the following day marked not just the dawn of a new day, but the beginning of a life redefined, not just for him, but for Lily too. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for heartfelt journeys of personal growth. Don't wait even one more second to share.